Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Jeannie McNabb, and I'm the project manager working on setting up the Regional Homelessness Authority on the county side. And for now, I am the staff person to your committee. This is a super exciting next step in standing up the authority. It's the sort of third part of the governance structure for the authority, and we're so grateful to all of you for your willingness to serve in this capacity. And it kind of is a dual capacity in that you are serving in this advisory capacity to the Regional Homelessness Authority Implementation Board, and you will also serving as the Continuum of Care Board. And so we know that's a big job, and we're delighted that you all were willing to take on this task. I think this committee is also noteworthy because it's hopefully reflective of the transformation and change that we hope comes from the Regional Homelessness Authority. And as I understand it, this mix of people serving in the capacity as the Continuum of Care Board is quite different from the mix of people who've been doing that historically. And I think that's a reflection of sort of embracing the theory of change and the centering on people with lived experience that is part of the intent of having the Regional Homelessness Authority. So I wanted to just say welcome to all of you and to let you know how grateful we are that you're here and that you're doing this. Just briefly, as I said, I'm the project manager. I'm Jeannie. I use she, her pronouns. And I have actually worked for King County for many, many years. And when I started back at the county back in 1993, I worked for a program that called the Seattle Homeless Families Project, where we helped people. We provided case management services to people who were newly coming into housing just to help support them. And at that time, that was really like cutting edge. That wasn't common to actually provide support services to people coming into housing. So this is, I feel really lucky that I get to work on this groundbreaking effort, and I'm really excited to see what you all are going to do. I just wanted to, Carrie, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? Carrie's running our Zoom technology, and she's queen of technology, in my opinion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Flory. I've been with the county for about 2 years in DCHS as the Business Readiness Manager. I help people get accustomed to technology within our department, new technology, and I also do support staff in public meetings like this for the KCRHA. In addition, before my life at the county, I worked for Solid Ground as grants manager. So I know some of these faces from my previous life. So it's great to see everyone, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Carrie. I just want to let people know that at future advisory committee meetings, we'll have an opportunity to have members of the public provide comments to you all. We don't have this on the agenda for today just because it's the first meeting and we're focusing on helping to get you all oriented. But if there are members of the public who are listening and attending this meeting, you are welcome to write comments in the chat. And we will review this and respond at the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, we'll have the formal public comment period built into the agenda. As we move forward, I wanted to do a land acknowledgement. We want to acknowledge that all U.S. land is originally Native American land, and that here in the Pacific Northwest, the Coast Salish are the original residents and protectors of this land. Some of the Coast Salish tribes are not currently recognized by the federal government, such as the Duwamish tribe, which is the land of Seattle, is the Duwamish land. And so it limits their access to key privileges granted to federally recognized tribes. And I just want to express gratitude to Native Americans who've been present in our region and stewarding the land in the Seattle-King County area for thousands of years and remain present here to this day. We have two main things we're going to do today. First of all, we just wanted to make sure that we started this process with a lot of space for you all to introduce yourselves and start to get to know one another. As well as, since we assume that many of you are new to the public meeting process, we wanted to provide early on Public Records and Open Public Meetings Act training so that you understand just what that involves when you're a member of a board that is subject to the rules and requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act. And then we'll just give you a teaser about more information about how we're going to orient you to your roles as the advisory committee to the Regional Homelessness Authority Implementation Board and Governing Committee, as well as the roles and responsibilities that come with being the designated Continuum of Care Board. Before we start jumping into introductions, I just wanted to see, based on anything I've said, if people have questions. All right. I think at that point, I will turn it over to my colleagues, Claudia and Marcus, who will introduce themselves and just talk to you about what's next.
Jeannie, first I'm going to jump in and say there's a couple people that are having troubles getting in. Noreen Hill and I believe Mike Sinsky. I'm still trying to get them in.
Mike's
so
here. I think I see here. Mike.
Oh, great. Yep. Hi, Mike. Sorry. Didn't see you there. So I'm going to get Noreen in just a minute.
Okay. Thanks for calling that out.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Claudia Pineda. Marcus Stubblefield and I will be facilitating in the space for the next hour. And we're going to lead y'all through some conversation about how we're going to work together better and also a little bit about getting to know each other. We're going to kick off today with a round of introductions. I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves by following a couple of prompts. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so if you could share, please, your name, your gender pronoun, and in one sentence, tell us what is your motivation for joining this committee. Marcus and I are going to start so that we can model exactly how long the intro needs to be. We're going to be really persistent with making the time that we take up short because we have so much information to get through today. All right, so my name is Claudia. I use she, her pronouns, and my motivation for joining this committee is being able to get to know all of you.
My name is Marcus Stubblefield. I use he, him pronouns, and my motivation for joining is to help y'all be in relation to one another and establish a sense of community. And I will tag Christy.
Good afternoon, fellows. I wish I could see everybody, but I can only see 4 of you at a time. My name is Christy. I use she, her pronouns. And my motivation for joining this committee is that we have the resources and everybody deserves to be housed. Thank you. And I will tag Carrie.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you. I can't see anybody else except you and Claudia and Jeannie.
Oh, let's see. Since I'm not technically on the committee, but I will just repeat. My name is Carrie Flory. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm excited to be here to staff and support you. And I will tag Tamara.
Unmute. Hi, my name is Tamara. I use she, her pronouns, and my motivation is to amplify the voices of our program participants in an effort to create real systems change here locally and to increase access to support services for people, our most vulnerable communities.
And if you can tag somebody, Tamara.
I will tag Jenna.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenna Burgoyne, she, her. My motivation for joining this committee is to bring my voice and my community's voice with lived experience to contribute to a more equitable and powerful change in our system. Oh, I'll tag Jessie.
Am I the only Jessie? Yes. Hi, everybody. Jessie Benet. I use he or they pronouns, and I'm super excited to be on this committee to center and make sure that homelessness services are responsive to people with a history of or current criminal legal system involvement. so that we have a system that actually is low barrier and grounded. I'm a big harm reductionist, so also grounded in harm reduction. Thank you.
If you could tag somebody, Jesse.
Yes, let me tag somebody. Dan Burton.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Dan Burton. I use he, him pronouns. I'm motivated to join this committee to really bring transparency to the rules and the things we've been doing as a COC board in the past, and really ask questions about how they've been done and make change towards this new committee. And I can't tag anyone because everyone I can see has already gone.
I'll tag somebody for you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll tag Kelly Brown.
Hello, I'm Kelly Brown. I use she, her pronouns. I am a part of this or joining this committee because I believe the only reason homelessness still exists is because of the lack of will. So I intend to be a part of it with you to change that discourse.
And Kelly, if you could tag somebody. Can you see people? Let me ask that first.
Let's see. I believe Michelle Valdez.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Valdez. I use she, her pronouns. I am also not a part of your committee, but I am one of the folks that are here to help support you in your onboarding as you kick off this new evolution of the continuum of care board. And let's see, I will try to look who hasn't gone yet. Marvin, have you gone?
I have not, so I will go. My name is Marvin Futrell. I use he, him. I'm really excited to join the board for a lot of the reasons that have already been stated, but primarily so that we advise towards equity for the full spectrum of homelessness. First time, chronic, youth, and that some of our efforts are always being understood as the whole and not the least common denominator.
Awesome. And can you tag somebody, please?
Robin.
Hi there. My name's Robin Tatsuda. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm here on this committee because the 2017 point in time count said that 50% of the unhoused population have some form of disability. The 2018 count said 53%, the 2019 count said 64%, and the 2020 count didn't even provide a percentage at all. So I'm here to make sure that people with disabilities are being considered. So I'll tag I think it's Miss Nightingale, and I've been sitting here trying to figure out how to pronounce your name, and I apologize that I didn't get there.
It's okay. Thank you, Robin. My name is Dawishma Nightgun, she, her pronouns. What is my motivation for joining this committee? It's many things, mainly racial equity and making sure we're serving people in marginalized populations equitably within a system that hasn't been representing them very well. But that's my main motivation.
Excellent. Will you tag somebody, please?
I'm looking right now. Lise Castro.
Hello, I am Lise. I use they, them pronouns, and my motivation for joining this committee is specifically to bring the priorities of our trans folks, young people, and brown folks. Yeah, and then I will tag Ben.
Great, howdy. My name is Ben Mitch. I use he, him, and I'm here to do whatever I can to support the movement to end homelessness and advance the cause of justice and equity, with particular focus on connections to healthcare, the healthcare system. And I will tag Christina.
I am Christina and I use captioning. I do not hear. And I also do not use pronouns. And I got involved because as a disabled veteran, I have been dealing with domestic violence for years, and just I'm part of the homeless community, and bringing the voice to my homeless neighbors and those who are out there with me is very important to me as we go through these struggles. And so I will tag, Karen, have you gone?
No, she hasn't. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Karen Taylor, she, her, and I'm here to stand up for the community and to make sure that everybody is treated fairly and everybody is valued and included. I want to give hope back to people that have lost hope, and I want to remind them that they matter and remind them of the dreams and values that they once had for themselves and maybe their grandparents or ancestors had for them.
Karen, if you want to tag somebody before you lean away. Thank you.
Oh, I'll tag Linda Peoples.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Linda, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
If Linda's having trouble coming on, I'll tag Brianna.
Hello, everyone. Can I be heard?
Yes.
All right. I apologize for not being on camera as I have bad service at the moment, but thank you for tagging me in the introduction to introduce myself. My name is Brianna Franco. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm really looking forward to this board, which is connecting the bridge to those who are working in the field and those with lived experience, as we all know that incorporating lived experience is essential to decision making. Thank you. And I will tag, let's see who hasn't.
Kelly Brown has not gone.
Kelly went. Let's tag Sue Garcia.
I'm your captioner this evening.
Oh, okay. All right. Then let's tag Sherry. Let me see it. Sherry
Tillman.
There we go.
Hi. My name is Sherry Tillman. Pronoun she, her. Basically, my motivation is to be able to help and support homeless families and racial equality. Because I've been there, just want to be able to be that voice and be able to help families. And I just got on because I was trying to get it together.
There's two people. You could tag Noreen or Denise.
Okay, let's go with Noreen.
Sigali Sogego, Gajit Jalongos, Aga Okwal. My English name is Noreen Hill. I'm from the United Tribe. I go with she, her pronouns.
Noreen, it's a little hard to hear you. Can you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure that we can hear you introduce yourself again. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to turn my volume up maybe. How's that?
Better, thank you. Better, thank you.
What was I saying? Somebody repeat what I said.
You did an amazing introduction.
Can you start from the beginning? Because I think what you started with, it was kind of warbly, and so we didn't catch that.
Okay.
That was important. So if you could do that.
Okay, I'll start again. Sigali Sogego, Gajit Jalongos Niyungit, Tongwe Ho, Onyoda Aga Ogwal. My English name is Noreen Hill. My native name is Gajit Jalongos. My pronouns are she, her. And my motivation to come to this committee is to help keep us grounded and centered and keep on track of what we're here for. And I really believe in the prayers and the land acknowledgement and all those things that come together to bring us together as a team. I look forward to meeting everybody and working as well. And of course, racial equity.
Thank you. Denise.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Denise Roth-Lutner. I go by she, her for pronouns. And I'm actually not a member of your advisory board, but here to offer staff support and help in this transition for the brand new board. I previously provided support to the former COC board and All Home. So I'm here to be a resource to you as needed. Thank you for all being here tonight.
And if we could circle back with, I think it was Linda, if her audio is correct and we can get her to do her intro, that would be great.
It looks like Linda is not signed in. I see somebody with a 5993 phone number.
Okay.
Jeannie, do you know if that could be Linda who's in the attendee area? If so, I can pull that person over and merge the audio. I'm going to go ahead and allow that person to speak. The person with the last 4 digits 5993, I've unmuted you and allowed you to speak. Are you Linda Peoples?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'll go ahead and merge you over if you want to go ahead and give your introduction.
Hi, my name is Linda Peoples. I go by she, her. My motivation is that all people deserve to be housed, and people are falling through the cracks. And I want to be that glue so we don't fall.
Beautiful. I think that's everybody. Thank you so much for telling us about yourself. I just had a big smile on my face the whole time because this is clearly an excellent group of folks.
Oh, actually, we've got one more person in the attendees. Jenny, is Jonathan Hemphill supposed to be pulled over?
I think he's just listening in.
Okay, great. Then
Well,
I will.
There's a raised hand, though.
Carrie, do you want to just give Jonathan a chance?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and, Jonathan, I've unmuted you and allowed you to speak, so go ahead and speak if you'd like.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Hemphill. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I will be the staff support for folks with lived experience on this board. I also sit on the governing committee as one of the co-chairs of it, and I also help staff a lot of other folks on the implementation board. So it's nice to meet you all, and I did an email introduction. So I don't know if you got that email, but pretty soon I'm going to be sending you guys some paperwork so that you all can, get your stuff together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. So let's make sure that everybody went. It seemed to me like that should be everybody, but if I'm wrong, please jump in now or let me know. Okay. So like I was saying, thank you so much for telling us about yourself. This is an excellent group of people. We're going to do one more lightning round to get to know each other better. And I really appreciate the way that people were really brief and concise the first time. That's exactly the kind of brevity that we want to keep to ensure that we're hearing everybody's voice. So we're going to now do a round where we're going to take turns finishing the sentence. Let me change the slide here. So my name is blank, and if you really knew me, you would know that blank. For example, my name is Claudia, and if you really knew me, you would know that I am affectionate.
My name is Marcus, and if you really knew me, you would know that I speak my truth. And I will pass it to Ben.
Oh my gosh. My name is Ben. If you really knew me, you'd know that I wasn't ready for this. You'd know that, that I'm fiercely committed to this, to the work of ending homelessness. And And I'll pass it to Robin.
Before Robin goes, Ben, I just want to give you a shout out. Thank you so much for allowing us to put you on the spot, and thanks for coming up with something real quick. It was perfect. Thank you. Robin?
My name is Robin, and if you really knew me, you would know that I'm also bad at coming up with things on the spot. You would know that I don't have kids, I have cats.
And if you could share with somebody.
Yep. The next person I see, Noreen.
My name is Noreen, and if you really knew me, you would know that I carry compassion. Oh, I'll pass it to Nawishtamai.
My name is Nawishtamai, and if you really knew me, you would know that what matters most to me is my family and community. And I'll pick Michelle Valdez.
Thanks. My name is Michelle, and if you really knew me, you would know that I'm a very good listener. I forgot my next job. I will pass it to Jessie.
These are so good. Okay, I'm Jessie, and if you really, wait, how does it start? I already forgot half the thing.
You're there, Jessie, you're there.
If you really knew me, you would know I love peach pie, my wonderful, awesome dog, Nova, who's being very good in her bed right now, and that I'm a trans person. And I will pass it to Kelly Brown.
My name is Kelly, and if you really knew me, you would know that I am bold and courageous on the things that matter and that I love extravagantly. I will pass it to Christina. Dare I try her last name, Christina Sawich? Sorry, Christina.
Remember, she can't
Remember,
speak.
she's closed captioned, so we got to
she's
allow a
closed
little bit of
captioned.
time. Yeah.
Oh, I have to wait. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
We'll make space, absolutely.
And I wanted to bring up that Christina said that Christina does not like to use pronouns. So instead of using she, her, we can just say Christina.
Christina, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That would be something wonderful to add to our names if we're able to do that.
I see Christina in the chat is saying to go ahead.
Okay, so let's pass it to Sherry.
My name is Sherry, and if you really knew me, you would know that I have the biggest heart in the world. I'm going to pass it to Tamara. Hopefully I said that right.
Oh, it's Tamara, but that's okay. I get that all the time. My name is Tamara, and if you really knew me, you would know that I value having a sense of humor, especially in doing this work. Sometimes when it gets really challenging, I need a good TV show or a good joke to keep my spirits up. So, and I will call on Marvin.
My name is Marvin G. Trell. If you really knew me, you know that I am relentless, tireless in empowering others in the community. I believe everybody deserves a voice, and I believe all voices should be heard.
You want to tag somebody, Marvin?
Oh, that's right. Night Gun.
already went.
Oh, so Marvin wasn't paying attention. I'm trying to flip through the screens, folks.
You want me to help you, Marvin?
Sure.
All
Take
right.
it away.
Let's tag Christy.
Hello, I am Christy, and if you really knew me, you would know that I love to travel, and I just got back from Hawaii. And I am going to tag Liz.
Hi, I'm Lise. Hi, my name is Lise, and if you really knew me, you would know that I value honesty aggressively. I'll tag Jenna.
Hi, my name is Jenna, and if you really knew me, you would know that I love and own chickens. And I'll tag Denise.
My name is Denise, and if you really knew me, you would know that I love and appreciate and value everything outdoors. The picture behind me on my screen is from a recent snowshoeing trip in the Olympic Peninsula, and truly a moment to appreciate what we have here in Washington. And Marcus, I might need help tagging somebody else. I'm looking at the screens as well. I'll take an assist if you can help out, Marcus.
I say it's tag Brianna.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you're speaking, Brianna, we can't hear you.
Brianna had said that she had some problems with connection, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if maybe we should come back to her.
I'll
if
come
we
back
can't
to
hear
her.
her.
Let's tag Karen.
Hey, I'm Karen. If you really know me, you'd know they call me KT, and I'm an artist, not a scientist or a psychologist.
Thank you, Karen. I will tag somebody for Karen. Sue's the closed captionist, so let's go with Dan.
My name is Dan, and if you really knew me, you would know that I normally can think of these things faster. I'm not as quiet as I'll seem for the first few meetings. That's my, if you really knew me.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Linda, I believe you're on the cell phone. So Linda, if you don't mind sharing.
Linda, I went ahead and unmuted you, so you can go ahead and speak.
I'm Linda, and if you knew me, you would know that I have a wonderful sense of humor and that I'm very caring.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know if we caught Marisol the first time, if she's on the committee or that's somebody that's listening in.
Hi, this is Marisol. And if you knew me, you will know that I came here as an immigrant and that I speak Spanish as well as English, and that I love knitting. So I love making winter warm hats and scarves.
Thank you. Let's check and see if I got everybody here. I think we got everybody.
Has anyone not gone yet? Feel free to jump on the mic. Otherwise, we're going to shift gears here really quickly. It was super exciting to hear from everybody, and notice that even these little snippets of yourself that you're sharing are already helping us get to know one another better. we're going to shift gears, and on the slide on the screen I'm sharing is a list of some of our goals. So why are we all here? Why have we gathered this awesome group of people? There's a list of 3 goals. I don't necessarily want us to get super caught up going into these goals. We're going to go into them at another section. But just an overview as to, I think that everybody that's here knows that we're here to advise and perform functions of the Continuum of Care Board. And these are just some goals, because later we're going to develop some goals together, right? And what Marcus and I are going to help us iron out for this group during the rest of our time together is developing a few agreements. If these are the goals that we're tasked to accomplish, what are the ways that we need to behave in the space and towards one another as we work towards these goals? So agreements are a short list of concise statements. And in order for these agreements to have value to this group, the entire group needs to have a shared understanding about what they mean.
Agreements are iterative. There can't be too many agreements. And to give you an idea of what we're talking about, here's a list of agreements that are used in other spaces, and Claudia will show that on the slide, just to kickstart some thought.
But so Marcus, before we move forward though, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean about agreements being iterative?
Well, I mean, this is not the final destination. And as we discover what agreements are, we know that there may be something that we missed out along the way that we need to show up in that space respectfully and with dignity. And so sometimes we will be able to adjust our shared agreements because we're allowing for space to grow and learn together as a community.
So this is an example of some agreements. And I don't want y'all to get caught up and be like, oh, these are the agreements that Claudia and Marcus are saying that we have to follow in this group. It's just an example to get the conversation started. So whoever wants to start, could you please tell us, what is it that you need in this space to be like so that you can come to this space and work towards the goals that we shared earlier?
I guess I would say respond versus react. If there's a statement that is, considered inflammatory or, but inquire into that, rather than just assuming ill intent. And I guess that would also go into the next thing, is always assume good intent.
Thank you so much for kicking us off. We took the presentation down so that people can see per your request. I'll pop them back up on the screen, but in the meantime, I'm going to be taking notes. So Tamara, respond versus react.
I got it, Claudia.
Okay,
I'm taking
awesome.
notes as
Thank
well.
you so much. Okay,
Yep.
Cool. If Marcus will take notes, then I'll hold the rest of it. So Tamara, thank you so much. Is there anybody that wants to add anything to what Tamara offered the space?
Yeah, I think everybody respecting everybody, their opinion, even if you disagree, respect that person for what they're saying.
Excellent, Sherry.
I want to say, she's finished. I want to say something.
Yeah, sure. So
Go ahead.
respecting everyone's opinion, Sherry, and I think that part of getting at the agreements is ironing out what respect means, right? I think that when we say, let's respect each other in the group, what we're doing with the agreements is that we are defining exactly what does respect mean for this group, right? Because since we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences, what does it look like, right? And I really appreciate, Sherry, that you mentioned, right, that we might have different opinions, right? But you're still going to respect the person. I may not respect your opinion, but I'm going to respect the person. Thank you. KT, is it okay if I call you KT?
Well, Claudia, I was going to jump in and just say, as one of the pieces about respect and respecting people, I want to note that I messaged you that we've got a couple people with their hands raised. So I just want to call attention to that so that you can monitor that along with other people that are raising their hands and jumping in.
So I think that it might be a little too much, you know, like there's the notes on the one hand and, you know, this Zoom thing is so complicated. I'm wondering if there's one person that can help me keep note of the people whose hands are raising. I got a couple screens going on, so I'm doing my best to manage. But yeah, Carrie, you raised your hand, so if you can help me with the hand raising, that would be awesome.
How would you like me to let you know that people have their hands raised? Would you want me to turn it to you or just interrupt?
I think that, like, you know, Karen jumped on and I'm like, Karen, you know, and then after Karen goes, you can prompt the people to go.
Great.
And then Marcus can be taking notes in the meantime.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't know my other camera was on. I'm just sitting here chowing down. You guys just looking at me like, look at this mom, look at this. But anyway,
we respecting your space, Karen. We respecting your space.
I'll just put the other computer on because I wanted to see everybody's face. But anyway, I just feel that everybody's understanding of how we learn, and you know, everybody doesn't move at the same speed. And I think it's important to make sure that everybody is up to speed, that everybody could recite it back, that everybody understands the work fully and not just leaning on the stronger people or the people that want to act strong or flex or whatever to lead them, right? Everybody in here is a leader. And I just feel like everybody's opinion is valuable. So yeah, with respect, that's very important. It's very key because we don't all feel the same way about the same thing. You know, something that will upset you might not upset me. Something that doesn't upset you at all might piss me all the way off. So we just got to respect and understand the differences in each other. I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the spirit of inclusivity here. In particular, how you kicked off and said, not everybody moves at the same speed, right? And so how do we create a space where we're being inclusive of people regardless of the speed at which they move? So I would like to ask you, Karen, is there like a concise agreement that you can think of that by everybody agreeing to that agreement, we're creating that space?
Well, I think that whoever's facilitating at the time should take the time to, you know, take the temperature of the room. You know what I'm saying? Go around, see people's faces if everybody's cammed up, which would be key. The only reason I'm not, because I'm picking out, but anyway, go around and go around and see, you know, on the faces and ask questions. Do you understand that? How do you feel about that? Like, take the time, you know, everything doesn't have to be at lightning speed. I think building strong relationships is more important than getting something done on a deadline. To me, it's more important that the relationship was built, because as a human being, I think it's more important to value the other human being than it is the task. That's just my opinion. Now, I don't know how to articulate that into a rule or whatever you guys said, an
agreement.
Marcus. Yeah, agreement. But I hope that you understand where I'm coming from. Somebody can help me out.
I think that that's exactly what we can help you do for sure. And I appreciate it. I think that, so you're asking for the, you know, facilitators to center relationships, right? And maybe that's an agreement. Maybe that's the agreement, right? That we center relationships, that we value relationships over object or over, you know, accomplishment.
Exactly.
And it's such an interesting thing that you raise here, because today Marcus and I's task is for us to develop these relationships. And it's not the first time we're going to be here. We're going to be here in a couple more meetings, right? You know, to help y'all develop those relationships. So I really appreciate the valuing and prioritizing of relationships, because, you know, we can't accomplish these goals if we don't have strong relationships with each other.
That's right.
And
Marvin, if we don't open up too, we got to be willing to open up. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
We've got Christy and then Marvin next. Sorry.
Christy and then Marvin. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. I appreciate how this has started out so far, and that we're creating our space. And there are 30 of us, and there are 30 different opinions, and we're going to disagree. We're going to disagree on a lot of things, and we're all supposed to be adults, right? The vote is still out on whether I am or not. If you really knew me, you wouldn't want to ask some of my friends, but I'll do my best to put my big girl pants on, because we're here for a bigger cause. We're here for something bigger than me. And I loved when Karen spoke, because what it reminded me of, have you ever seen a mom pull their little toddler along, and the mom's walking in big mom steps and the little toddler's walking as fast as they can on their little baby legs? And if she's not walking the speed of that toddler, the toddler's basically flying along. And so it is important for us to go at, and I don't want to say the slowest person in the room, because you think I'm talking about me, right? But it is important to go at the speed that everyone gets. And so I'm glad she said that. But what I wanted to say was that if we listen with an open mind, and we listen with the intent to understand and not to respond. Oh, and I'm very guilty of that. My mom used to say that. You're so busy thinking about what you're going to answer, you didn't hear what I said. And I would love to tell you that I'm overdoing that. You know, I'm done with that, but I still do it. And so I hope that I'm going to give you permission to call me on that if I do that in our meetings. And when we can listen, I find that if I listen to you, I may not like it and it may be uncomfortable, but I may learn something. And I'm always up for that. So I'm real glad to be here. And I'm sure we're going to be all nice and polite in the honeymoon phase right now. And we'll get the gloves off later. So that's all I have on that. Thank you for letting me say my piece. And
Thank
you're
you.
up,
And
Marvin.
there was in the things that you said, Christy, that you offered, I heard like 3 or 4 agreements, right? And so I think that maybe from that, you know, we could listen with an open mind. We can listen to understand. And I also heard something about it's being okay for things to be uncomfortable, right? And so no matter what happens here, you know, sitting in that place of discomfort is going to be something I think we're already practicing, right? We're all sitting in this place of discomfort. Here we are trying to get to know each other in a short amount of time over Zoom. So thank you for the offer.
And I did want to say I appreciated the way that you and Carrie were able to recognize that we had our hands up, that's essential for us to be able to respect one another. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to that
Marvin
point,
is
Marvin
next?
say Marvin, and then Kelly, and then Jesse.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. What I've taken away is what I wrote down real quick while there were good discussion was, what I see that we didn't say was, this environment should encourage people to question anything that we don't understand. And it should be accepted that people are going to ask questions and are treated poorly for it. I do agree that at times we will have to agree to disagree, and that at the end of the day, it's not about us, but finding a common voice that speaks for the people. I mean, we need to, I think those should be part of any agreements that we use to work, you know. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. So we're trying to build an inclusive space here, and you know, one where we sit in discomfort and we work through conflict, and that's going to mean that we create a culture and a team where it's okay to ask questions, right? It seems like y'all are, and even encourage, not just make it okay, but invite it into the space. And I think that y'all are already doing an amazing job, as you've been asking questions and saying, I need this, and jumping in and not being shy about it. Y'all are already modeling it, so thank you. We have Kelly next.
Thank you. I just wanted to lift up that we've said a few times we should welcome differences of opinion, but I wanted to be clear that I'm not sure we always understand what a difference of opinion is. And so I just wanted to, I posted in the chat a quote from James Baldwin: "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." So it is not a difference of opinion for you to believe that trans lives don't matter. It is not a difference of opinion to believe that Black lives don't matter. So I just want to, or that disabled folks do not, should not expect the same rights as others. So I just want to say that we don't need another inauthentic place where we're not willing to speak the truth because we're trying to make nice. We certainly want to be able to speak the truth here and understand that sometimes being called out is more rightly being called in, so that we can be on the same page. So whatever you want to gather from that, I'm happy for you to do it. But I just wanted to say that I'm not willing, and I know many of you are not willing to be in another place where we're just making nice and trying to do our job, and we're missing the real work that being called for us to do in doing so.
Yeah. That's really awesome. I'm so glad that you brought that into the space, because it kind of speaks to the agreeing to disagree, right? I hear the sentiment behind that. Sometimes, you know, conflicts or positions aren't going to be something that we can resolve in the space. Sometimes we're going to have to take it offline and have individual conversations. At the same time, you know, there's also parameters about what does that look like. And there are some things that are unacceptable to say, well, we're just going to disagree about that. That's not going to be conducive for this space. So Kelly, I'm not sure if you have, you know, you offered, right, kindly, like, you know, take what you want from it. And because you were the person that offered this thought into the space, is there an agreement that you think that the group, you know, that we could rally around to be like?
I will say cultivate authentic space as one. And yeah, we can continue to sort of have conversations around disagreement, because some of those things I don't think are disagreements. I think it's violence. So we can continue to talk about that. But I would just say that cultivating the authentic spaces, and also maybe, let's say, something around being open to understanding the dynamics of oppression.
Awesome, thank you. So I really love the sentiment of like, let's keep unpacking this, right? And so maybe for now we can use for the purpose of the function of what we're trying to get at, maybe we could use the concise cultivate authentic space. We heard Kelly's sentiments around what that means, being open to understand the dynamics of oppression. And let's keep the conversation going. Like Marcus said at the beginning of this is iterative, right? We don't have to land here. We're gonna hear from Jesse, and then we're gonna put a pin on going back to seeing if after this discussion that we have had, we can come up with a list of like 5 agreements. And I say that just because in some spaces, if you come up with like 20 agreements, it's too much of a list, right? It feels too like I can't even participate because I feel so confined by the way that I should be. So we'll hear from Jesse and then take it back.
Really appreciate what you said and co-sign all of it. And mine is quick. I just wanted to say that we'll operate with a sense of urgency, and that we won't do things just because that's the way they've always been done.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like Marvin, you have your hand up. Do you have something quick to add before we move?
I just want to hopefully add clarity. I hope that all of our communications and our work together is nonviolent. I mean, that was a point that I didn't want to miss, that we practice nonviolence every day, you know, in our communications, in our actions, and hopefully the way that we respond to one another.
So, thank you for offering it. All right, Marvin, thank you for taking us to that point. So, you know, for for spaces like this and any other space, there's always this delicate balance, right? On the one hand, we want to build relationships, and on the other hand, we also have goals and things that we need to accomplish. So how do you balance that, right? Some of us love dialogue and getting into things really deep, and that's why we're brought here. And at the same time, we sometimes, rely on facilitators to keep us on track. Because it sounds to me like some of y'all have also been in spaces where things don't get done because people want to keep going. And then there's a sense of urgency while people are homeless and experiencing other kinds of violences and oppression, right? And there's all these people in a room talking. So the challenge for this group and for facilitators for this space and, moving forward is how do you find that balance, right? How do you keep things moving? Also understanding that things aren't always neatly going to be tied up in a box. Things aren't necessarily going to be resolved. And we still need to stay engaged and keep going because like somebody said earlier, we're not here for us, right? At the end of the day, some of us are here for us, and also acknowledging that we're here for other people in the community that may not have the access and the privileges that we do.
I got my hand
Marcus?
up. But, sorry.
Yes. Oh, Karen, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there definitely needs to be like a timekeeper, and there needs to be an agenda set aside with a certain amount of time for, I guess, things to happen. Like, I don't know how long these meetings are going to be yet or any of that kind of stuff, but I definitely think that getting the work done is important. However, I also feel that making sure everybody is aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it and agrees with it is also very important. So I think having an even balance and a good facilitator or two of you, one doing this and one, I just think that I see that we can do this. I believe that. I have hope and belief that we will be able to work together and to be respectful and honorable towards each other. I just believe that we can, and I just think that you guys already know. I know some of you guys already, so I know we can do this. So.
And I will just say, Karen, for the meetings, the regular meetings that you all will have, that I'm just about getting ready to poll you all to try and understand availability. We're thinking 2 hours, so I just wanted to put that out there so you know. And I'm open to feedback. That was based on what we do right now for the implementation board and the governing committee.
Thank you. Marcus, it sounds like we have a lot of ideas for agreements, and I also have heard through the offerings of agreements that there are some things that overlap, and we could even condense, right? If we have a list of those 20, at some point they start to get redundant. So we can even consolidate and overlap some. Marcus, can you help me out here to draft maybe the first list of a few agreements?
Yeah, respond versus react. Second one, assume good intent. Respect everyone's opinion and experience.
I mean, I already see that that's sometimes going to be in conflict if someone has an opinion with somebody that's violent, right?
Yep.
With an idea that's oppressive, right?
Mm-hmm. The next one is understanding styles and pace of everyone and not leaving people behind. Understand everyone's pace and style, whether they have a different, they're a hands-on learner or they're, they can listen and take it. Was there everyone is the leader, or see us as leaders, see everyone as a leader. Center relationships over accomplishments. Experience discomfort. Encourage people to question and ask questions. Agree to disagree. speak your truth. And then on the back side of that is being called out or being versus being called in.
I don't know if it was a versus. I don't know. That's just
okay.
me. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's why I kind of hesitated when I was typing it out.
I was just saying equal on my thing. I just wrote equals being called in.
Okay.
Right. So if that doesn't speak to what I think it was Kelly was speaking to, then we can, we all need to be looking at this to make sure that's what we said.
We're gonna fine tune these in a little bit. I'm gonna ask folks to for us to come back and finesse them a little bit in the next couple of minutes here.
You want me to keep going, or are you going?
What else do you got?
I have about 8 more.
Okay.
Let's see. Speak your truth. Being called out. Being called in. Cultivate authentic space as one.
I might need a literacy moment on that. Cultivate authentic space. So cultivate means kind of nurture and grow, and authentic means real. But I just don't understand how that. I don't get
that.
It.
It's okay for you to bring your authentic self into the space, and that should be nurtured, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that the operate with a sense of urgency. Not doing things just because that's the way we've always done it. Or you could say willing to challenge status quo.
Okay.
I think all the other ones are reflected in some of the ones that we kind of generalize. So I think that's.
So kind of like what I was saying earlier, y'all, in order for us to have a working group of agreements, we gotta work to be really clear. Let's get really clear about what these things mean to us, so that when people come into the group, whether that's y'all or new people, everyone has a shared understanding of this group, of the sentiment and the intention and the meaning behind these agreements. And it's so important that we build this out now, so that it can have real value and meaning for the group, so that we can actually use them, right? It's not just something that we should put down on a slide and then tuck it away, cross it off the list, we did it, and then move ahead. But we're going to need to continue to refine and discuss these. So know that even though we might not get to a perfect list today, we're kicking off this conversation. So as you look at these, what are some things that you feel like could be condensed to get to a working list of things? Or even some that you might say, you know what, we need to take that out because that's in direct conflict with this other thing we said over here. And before y'all chime in, I would love to invite people that haven't spoken into the space, just to ensure that we are including everybody and hearing from everybody. All right, Marvin, I see you. I'm going to invite someone we haven't heard from. Is there someone we haven't heard from today? I'm going to challenge somebody that hasn't spoken into the space to get
I was
uncomfortable.
going to offer an exercise real quick in community building. So everyone who's already spoken to develop the list is now excluded from the next segment of conversation. There'll be others on the committee to take the original ideas or add to or help us refine, so that we all end up with one voice at the end of the meeting. So that would be my suggestion as a member.
Thank you.
If folks are willing to take a step back from what they've already given and allow others to narrow us down.
Thank you for that, Marvin.
Invite. Yeah, thank you.
Claudia, will you repeat the question?
Yes, so what we're doing right now is we're taking a few minutes to refine the agreements So if folks can add in their contributions in terms of being like, you know what, maybe we can condense this one into this one. We can collapse this agreement to this other one. Or, hey, we should take this one out considering the conversation we had. So it's a few questions, and I'm opening up to y'all to lead us into coming up with a concise list of agreements.
Newishtamai has raised her hand.
Go ahead.
So I think 7 and 11 can be combined by saying experience discomfort by being called in.
Do y'all think that condensing this like that works for the intent of how this was offered into the space? Okay, I see some nods and some thumbs up. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts?
I think you can condense 3 and 11.
Okay. Help me out here. How would you condense it?
Well, because it respecting everyone's opinion and experience. You know, as I think a lot of folks of color can say, that's respecting who we are as human beings, respecting our opinions and our experience, cultivating and nurturing authentic space. That's who we are. We all have our own authentic space as people, regardless of what tribe or village we come from. And those two together are saying the same thing.
Okay.
I mean,
so,
in my eyes, I see it as the same. It's respectful. In our teachings, we talk about respect other people's religion and culture, you know, and it's respecting that person as a human being.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you were to condense this into like a phrase or a statement, what would it say?
I would say respect and cultivate and nurture authentic space.
Thank you so much. Does that get to the sentiment of what the group offered? Yeah, I see some head nods. Thank you. What else? This is perfect, y'all. Let's keep it rolling.
I would say number 4 and number 8 kind of merge together, because by understanding everyone's pace and style, you kind of are assuming that some people are going to need to ask more questions than others. Some people are going to need to have more explanations behind certain things.
Excellent. So if there is an agreement that could consolidate those, how would you phrase it?
Meet people where they're at.
Okay. So do y'all agree that meeting people where they are reflects understanding everyone's pace and style and encourage people to ask questions? Yeah.
Not quite.
I see some head nods. What is a tweak that you would add to meet people where they are to ensure that we're encouraging people to ask questions and understanding people's pace and style?
And we have a closeout in about 1 minute, Claudia.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that cultivating and nurturing an authentic space like fosters a type of vulnerability that would invite questions. So I think that we've like between 3 and 4 already hit the marks we need to hit.
Okay. I'm gonna.
I just want us to move away from what we've always done. What's always been the norm is to just throw up something up there and then not really pay attention to what the real true meaning of it is, right? I just want to put that out there. We can bring it up next week or whatever.
And Christy has her hand up.
Okay. So before I move on to Christy, I want to acknowledge here what Karen said. We have to be willing to challenge the status quo, right? In terms of doing things differently. Doing things differently could be an agreement. And also, right, we're making the agreement that these agreements are not just throwing something out there, but we're actually going to keep on using them, right? That's why we're trying to come up with a list that we can actually use. Somebody else was about to chime in?
Christy. And then I think after that, we have to close out because it's time for.
Yes.
Thank you. I started my video. There we go. I was eating my dinner, so sorry. I think we can combine 7 and 11 because sometimes it is uncomfortable to change what we already know and we get out of our comfort space. No, 11.
11.
Yeah, we want to willing to change the status quo, and that's going to be, we're going to experience discomfort by doing that. And I know that we're going to experience discomfort by being called in or called out. We're also going to experience discomfort by being willing to change the status quo. So there's going to be discomfort in this meeting. So just experiencing discomfort and being willing to change the status quo. So.
All right. So like we said earlier, y'all, like absolutely relationships are important and this is not the end. We're going to continue this conversation the next couple of times that we meet. For now, we're going to save this in a draft and we're just going to keep it moving. Thank you so much for your grace and for your participation in this conversation.
Thank you for facilitating it.
Thanks everybody for contributing to that. So what we're going to do right now is give you all an overview and some information about what it means to be part of a board that is based in a public entity, which means everything we do is subject to the Public Records Act and to the Open Public Meetings Act. And we have 2 colleagues here from King County who are going to talk to you about that. And I'm going to actually let you 2 introduce yourselves, but Shelby Michaelson and Mike Sinsky, who work for the county, are going to talk about this with you, and I'll just give you, if you all can introduce yourselves to start off, that'd be great.
Thanks, Jeannie. My name is Shelby Michaelson, and as Jeannie mentioned, I am from the King County Office of Risk Management Services, and I am a program manager in that office, and I work with all sorts of folks across the county on compliance issues for both the Washington State Public Records Act as well as occasionally the Open Public Meetings Act. And Mike and I are going to chat with you a bit about those 2 laws today and hopefully answer any questions that folks may have about those particular statutes.
So first, I just want to congratulate all of you on your appointment to the Regional Homelessness Advisory Committee. This is just from listening in on your conversation this morning. It's clearly a dynamic group, and the work you're doing is so important. We really appreciate the commitment of time and energy that you're going to put into this. Again, I'm Mike Sinsky. I'm in the King County Prosecutor's Office. I have been with the county for upwards of 30 years now and have done a fair amount of work involving open public meetings and public records. I represent a variety of different departments, including the Department of Community and Human Services, DCHS, that deals with a lot of issues involving affordable housing, homelessness. And then I also represent a number of committees that are county committees. And just one quick word on that. Our representation is of county entities, county government. Well, your group was, the authority was set up by the county and by the city of Seattle. It's an independent public entity. And you will likely have a separate legal counsel from the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney. And so I'm here today to assist Shelby in providing somewhat of an overview, but it's not technically legal advice to you. It's just sort of a sense of what these issues are, and then I think if there are more detailed questions, which I'm sure you may have as you go forward, you may have separate counsel looking at those. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm going to share a couple presentations with folks today, and I think we'll start with the Open Public Meetings Act. Okay. So we're going to start today talking about the Open Public Meetings Act. The Open Public Meetings Act is also referred to as the OPMA. It's RCW chapter 4230. And a little bit about the Open Public Meetings Act, along with the Public Records Act, which we'll talk about next, as well as the state's campaign finance laws. These laws were passed in 1972 by initiative. They are what is known as the state's sunshine laws. They were part of some of the blowback to the Watergate scandal. And these laws are intended to really give, the folks of Washington the power over their government. And so the Open Public Meetings Act applies to agencies and governing bodies, whereas the Public Records Act is going to talk about records specifically, and we'll get into that in the next training. So agencies and governing bodies, we're talking about all public agencies, and this applies to all governing bodies. So governing bodies mean multi-member boards, commissions, committees, or other policy or rulemaking bodies of a public agency. And if that agency is doing things like conducting hearings, taking testimony, or public comment. There is a requirement that these boards receive training. So that's one thing Mike and I are doing with you today. And I think that the language of the statute is really a good strong policy statement, which is that the legislature finds that public boards exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of this chapter that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. So we're going to go through some definitions, and we're going to talk a lot today about a meeting. And a meeting, for purposes of the Open Public Meetings Act, can be more than just what we're doing today. So a meeting is any time where action is taken. So a meeting of a governing body occurs when a majority of its members, also known as a quorum, gathers with the collective intent of transacting the governing body's business. So a group can have a meeting unintentionally, and that is one thing we want to avoid when we're a board or commission, is we don't want to have a meeting when we don't mean to be having a meeting. So when that definition, a meeting is when action is taken, there's two types of actions that can happen that would constitute a meeting. So there's an action, which is the receipt of public testimony, deliberations, having discussions, considering things, reviewing things, evaluating things or policies, and then final actions. So final actions would be those final discussions on decisions and then voting. So when we are a member of a board or commission or have a board or commission under the OPMA, we can't have as a condition of attendance that folks have to register or complete a questionnaire or fulfill any other condition that will, in order for us to give them permission in order to participate. So folks are allowed to participate in public meetings. If folks are causing disruptions or an agency can't restore order, the agency can clear the room, either virtually or physically, and resume the meeting. But the agency cannot exclude the press unless the press was the entity that was being disruptive. And if an agency did need to clear the room because of a disruption of some sort, that agency can only take action on matters that were put on the agenda before the meeting. So no other business, no new topics, only things that were actually on that agenda. Like many things right now, we have some emergency changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The governor—
Can I ask a question, or let
Sure.
me know when? Let me know when.
Why don't we take it now? Go for it.
I just want to know, by whose definition are we going to be using when we say disruptive? Disruptive to who?
I think that might be, I heard a lot of you folks talking about agreements, and that might be something you want to think about for your group. I can't give you a definition of that, I can think of samples of times when folks have been disruptive. Say, someone who is coming to give public comment, and they're given 5 minutes to give public comment, and they attempt to give public comment for 20 minutes. That might be for your group disruptive, but that might be something that you as a group want to take on for a definition for yourselves.
So I guess what my question is the county setting limitations for our group? I guess that's my question, because it sounded like you were saying that, and maybe I misheard you.
My intent was to say that the Open Public Meetings Act, which is state law, does allow that a meeting to be stopped for if the agency or the board itself decides it is experiencing a disruption. And it does allow that the meeting can go forward after that, as long as the board or commission stays on those agenda items that they had already published before the meeting. But what your group decides to define a disruption as, I think, is up to your group.
Okay, thank you.
You are very welcome. That was a great question.
And Shelby, I can also just add briefly that we've had problems with public meetings in the past being hijacked or Zoom bombed. And so one of the reasons we're using this format, the webinar format, is to prevent Zoom bombing. And so that is one example of a disruption in which people would be removed from the virtual meeting. There have been racist and sexual content that has been shared. So we are using this more secure platform of webinar to prevent that. So I just wanted to comment that that kind of behavior would immediately be removed if it's a Zoom bomb. And then I think that there's definitely space for conversation around other types of things. I'm specifically talking about when we have hackers. So.
And that's a great example, Carrie. Thanks for bringing that up. My mind was going back to when we were still in the physical environment, and where I have seen it has been an example that I shared of someone who, was granted 2 to 5 minutes of public comment and attempted to make 25 minutes of public comment. But I would.
I just wanted to clarify what I meant, which was, the community is fed up with the conditions that, the deplorable conditions that they find themselves in on a daily basis, and the freezing weather that they sleep outside in. So if they were to come into public comment and be emotional or be righteously angry, personally, I would not want to say that that is a disruption. That is a reality. And I don't want the county to think that their determination of what disruptive is also mine. That's what I meant. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for that comment.
Yeah, and I think we can continue to talk about that in the agreements, because as a facilitator, I will do whatever y'all tell me to do as a technical facilitator.
So because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we do have some emergency changes. So all public meetings are currently being held remotely, and to have in-person meetings, they do need to meet with the state's guidelines for our phased reopening. And that will be updated as conditions change with the pandemic. So the Open Public Meetings Act does carry penalties. So any action that is taken at a meeting that fails to comply with the OPMA are null and void, meaning those actions didn't happen. So if there was a vote taken at a meeting that did not comply with the OPMA's rules, and a member of the public brought that claim to the court and the court agreed, then say that vote would not count and it would have to be redone. There also could be penalties. So there are personal liabilities to each member who knowingly attends a meeting in violation of the OPMA. It's a $500 penalty for first offense and a $1,000 penalty for subsequent violations. That would be at the discretion, the court would order those things. and there's attorney's fees and costs to successful parties that seek the remedies in court, should the court decide that to do so. So we talked a little bit about what a meeting is, and now we're going to talk about different types of meetings. So there's two different types of meetings under the OPMA. The first is what's called a regular meeting. So for a regular meeting, agencies have to identify the time and the place they'll hold their regular meetings. Regular meetings are held in accordance with a periodic schedule declared by a statute or rule. So you folks may have a meeting monthly, bi-weekly, whatever your group decides. And you'll be posting an agenda at least 24 hours before your meeting with your agenda items. Then there is something called a special meeting. In a special meeting, the presiding officer of your board or commission can call the special meeting. And whenever your agency has a meeting that's at a time other than your regularly scheduled meetings, that would be considered a special meeting. To have a special meeting, you have to give 24 hours notice to the members of the board, as well as the media who have requested prior notification. Notice must also be put on the website. And when your board is holding a special meeting, you are limited to items that are already on that posted agenda. So you can't talk about other business or new items that weren't placed on the agenda already. There's a few things that have to happen with meetings. So as I mentioned, there needs to be an agenda. So the agenda notice has to be posted 24 hours before that regular meeting. And then with the other process for the special meetings, as I described before. Minutes must be taken at meetings. They must be made available for the public. They need to recite significant actions of the meeting. And many boards and commissions choose to video or audio record their meeting like this one so that everybody can see exactly what was said at the meeting. There is an exception for executive session, which I'll talk about just in a moment. And then we'll talk about adjournments. So if, say, your meeting goes longer than you thought it would, you can, the presiding officer can adjourn the meeting to a later date, time, or location. So say today you just don't get everything done and you need to set a second session to continue this discussion, you could set an adjournment where you can continue with that priorly posted agenda. In our physical world, we have to post information of a door on our door of the meeting being adjourned. In the virtual world, I think we would do that on a website. When we're taking votes as a board and commission, those votes may not be taken by secret ballot. So everybody does need to vote in the open. Any vote taken in violation of this subsection shall be null and void and considered an action under this chapter. So do you need to vote in public? And there are 15 limited specific situations where a board or commission could go into executive session. And what that means is if the board wants to call an executive session for one of these 15 reasons, for example, to get legal advice, the presiding officer of the board has to state out loud on the record before the session starts the purpose for the executive session, the specific exemption being relied upon, and when that executive session will conclude. So if your board was calling an executive session to get legal advice, your presiding officer would say something to the effect of, this board will now be going into an executive session. We're going to receive legal advice from our counsel, and we anticipate that this executive session will last 15 minutes. After that, we will come back to regular session. Because you cannot vote by secret ballot, you also cannot vote in executive session. So if you are making a decision in having a discussion in executive session, you have to make a final action or a final discussion or vote back in regular session on that issue. So there's a lot of resources for the OPMA. Again, there's chapter 4230 of the Revised Code of Washington. The Washington State Attorney General's Office has training on the OPMA on its website. It's available via YouTube. I highly recommend everybody watch that. And then another great group called the Municipal Research and Services Center also has additional trainings available on the OPMA. So that is the OPMA. I don't know if anyone else has any questions on that, or if we're ready to move on to public records.
Looks like Christy has a question there.
I do. I was wondering if you could make those website links available to us for more than just the blink of an eye, please.
Yes, the answer is yes. I believe you will have these materials if you don't have them already.
Okay,
yes,
great.
we will send these out to you
Okay,
along
great.
with the notes for the meeting.
Thank you, Jeannie. Okay, then thank you, Shelby. Thank you.
So let me just make a few very, very broad brush comments on Open Public Meetings Act. As Shelby mentioned, that the origins of this and the other open government laws that we're looking at are originated in Watergate. But there are a number of other reasons why they're important. The key is that members of the public are our bosses when we're serving in this public role. And so as bosses, they get to see our work. And in the context of meetings, that's what the Open Public Meetings Act is geared to address. And particularly the work that you guys are doing. I mean, you're dealing with a matter that's a significant crisis. You can look at the paper every day and you're going to see stories about how this is impacting the community, how important it is to come up with efforts to resolve these difficulties. And so there's enormous public interest in what you're doing. And with regards to the Open Public Meetings Act itself, so I would just comment that there are three areas where it applies. You know, it applies before meetings, during meetings, and after. The before is the agendas, that there's a requirement that you have agendas. The during is you have to have meetings that the public can attend, that they can view. And the after is that there are meeting minutes that would explain what you did, so that someone who wasn't able to attend can see what activities took place. Last comment I'd make is generally there's an interesting legal question about whether or how the Open Public Meetings Act applies to the work that you do as an advisory committee. Typically, the act applies to entities that have decision-making authority, boards and councils and whatnot. And your role is, as I understand, as an advisory committee. And
actually,
there's a legal question.
I just chime in. They will have, this group does have decision-making authority as it relates to their role as the Continuum of Care Board, it was wrapped up into this. And so I just want to make sure you know that and that people know.
That's a great point then. And even if that wasn't the case, there is, apart from the state law, the Open Public Meetings Act, there's an interlocal agreement that established your group that does have requirements for the meetings to be open. And so those requirements get imported irrespective of what state law may require.
Thank you, Mike. Super helpful. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Public Records Act now. So as we talked about, the Public Records Act is another one of those sunshine laws here in Washington State. The Public Records Act is often called the PRA, and it's located in RCW Chapter 4256. So we're going to talk a lot about public records. So what is a public record? Public record is any writing that relates to the conduct or performance of any governmental or proprietary function that was prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency. So we use the acronym POUR, P-O-U-R, when we talk about this prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency. And what that basically means is anything, any record, and we'll talk about examples of records in a moment, but any record that we either have or we've prepared or we've used for government business is a public record. And it does not matter if we have necessarily retained that record or not. So if I go out and do a site inspection and review records at the site inspection and decide to pass that agency on my inspection based on those records I reviewed, those would be public records because I use them even if I did not retain them. So how does a writing defined? And again, we need to remember that this statute was written in 1972, so some of the examples may not be as salient as they are today, but others are right on. So writing means handwriting, typewriting, printing, photostating, photographing, and any other means of recording any form of communication or representation, including but not limited to many, many things. So what does that mean today? We've got lots of types of records. So basically anything, again, that we prepare, own, use, or retain by a public agency or public board or commission would be a public record. So the video of today's meeting, that's going to be a public record. This PowerPoint presentation is a public record. Meeting minutes, letters, databases, emails, text messages, anything like that is a public record. Yes, I have a hand up. Question.
And sorry if I'm too early and maybe you're going to get to this, but I guess, will we have our own like email retention? Like, should we be making sure that we're not deleting emails? Because we don't have email addresses for this work.
So yes, this board will need to follow retention practices. And when the agency has their staff set up, I think you'll get a lot more information about that. What I can generally say is you should retain records that reflect the work of the board. So things that I would say you may not need to retain are things like, could we meet at 5:45 instead of 5:30? Remember to make sure you plug in your computer before the meeting starts so you don't run out of battery. You know, those things don't document the business of the board, but those records that reflect our work and our decisions definitely should be retained. There's specific retention periods that I think you'll get more information on later when you've got an entity set up with the staff, but generally we follow state retention schedules that are published by the Washington State Secretary of State's office, and the county follows what's called the local core, so the local government retention schedule. And those are all available on the Secretary of State's website if anybody would like to dig into them.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but does staff know whether or not the committee members will have a public email address?
Yeah, this is Jeannie. I'm sorry, I'll come back on camera in just a minute. But yes, I was going to say that to Ben and to others. That is on my list for you all, and you will be hearing from me about that. So we have the ability to give you an email address specific for your board responsibilities. So it just makes it much easier if we have any sort of public records request.
I also want to note that Christy has her hand up.
Thank you. Yes, Shelby, does this type of record keeping, does this also pertain to any individual handwritten notes that I might keep as a public servant during the course of my business as an advisory board member?
Yes, it does. So again, when we talk about retention, if you're just like jotting things down while the meeting goes so that you remember, okay, this is my comment, but I want to jot it down so I have notes when it's my turn to talk, I would say that's a transitory record, and I would shred that or recycle that as soon as the meeting's over. But if you're taking, documenting things about the business of government, those records likely have retention value.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So public agencies must respond to something called a public records request, and public records requests do not have to be in writing. So we can receive public records requests from members of the public. You could get a public records request, say if you had public comment at your meetings. And we need to make sure that we document those requests and that we get them to staff as soon as possible, because we have very short time periods in order to respond to those requests. So we only have 5 business days, which I'll get into in a bit later. But if you receive a public records request from someone, or if you receive one in this meeting forum, usually what we recommend is, if it's verbal, confirming with that person verbally, are you intending to make a request for records? and then making sure you get, if that is affirmative, that you get that to staff right away so that staff can start working on that and reach out to that person. We do not think that board members are responsible in any way to respond to public records requests. What you are responsible for is sort of, raising your hand saying, hey, I got a request or I have a question, so that we as staff can take the appropriate actions. So again, requests don't have to be in writing. Usually they are. Most people make their requests in writing. So if you say got an email from someone on behalf as a board member and they use words like public records requests or PRR or public disclosure requests or PDR or Freedom of Information Act requests or FOIA, which is the federal equivalent statute, those are usually people wanting to make requests for records. And I also say to be aware of hidden requests. And what I mean about hidden requests, it's not that the person is intending to hide the request. It's usually that they have a lot of information they want to share with us, or comments or concerns, and they might put a request in that commentary or those concerns or those questions. And it's our duty to read that information and make sure that we identify, okay, these are questions, these are concerns, this is information sharing, and here's a request for records, and then respond appropriately as staff. So the Public Records Act gives agencies some legal requirements when we receive a public records request. So we must promptly make available for inspection and copying all identifiable public records unless that record falls into a specific exemption in the Public Records Act. And there's about 400 of them. We'll go over a couple of them today. Some of them are very specific, like the location of ginseng plants in the forest. Don't use that one very often. Some of them are very applicable a lot of times, like legal advice, getting legal advice. Agencies are required to provide fullest assistance to requesters. So I have a legal duty to provide the fullest assistance to public records requesters. I also have a customer service duty to customers and residents and members of our community. I have a duty to respect all people. I have a duty to be a good public servant, but this statute is the only statute I know of that actually says I have a legal duty to provide fullest assistance to people, which I think is a great thing. Agencies are going to have to perform an adequate search in all places we reasonably believe that public records could be. So if I get a public records request regarding your board and I think board members might have responsive records, I am going to have to reach out to folks, or your staff is going to have to reach out to you in order to gather those public records. And then we said we have really short time periods. So we have to respond in writing to a request in 5 business days. So that is not a lot of time, especially if the request kind of comes in not directly to the public records officer or staff. Right now there is a little bit more time if we receive requests via the mail due to the governor's proclamation about the PRA in the pandemic. But we still are limited to 5 business days when we're talking about if we get requests via email or electronically. So, Christy, did you have another question?
I did. How do some other government agencies get around that 5-day turnaround?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, if they are under the same PDR laws and FOIA laws that we are in their King County government agencies, are they required to fall under the same requirements?
King County and all of its agencies are covered by the Public Records Act, as well as all state and local agencies in the state of Washington.
And 5-day rule is that you have to respond within that time frame by telling the requester you received the request and either providing the records that they've asked for, or letting them know what time frame you're going to be able to provide those within. So it's not, you don't necessarily have to give all the responsive records in that 5-day window, but you have to let them know that you have a time frame that you're going to be acting on the request.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question, and thanks, Mike, for that clarification. Yes, when we're talking about a 5-day, it's just for that initial response. Today, I was working on a request that I've been working on for the past 4 years. So it can take some time in order to respond based on the volume of the request and the complexity. So within that 5-day response, we need to provide for inspection and or a copy of the records requested. So say someone asks for a copy of the video of this meeting, your staff could very easily within 5 days say, here's the video, or they could provide a link to the internet address on the agency website to say that video. We could also acknowledge receipt of the request and provide a reasonable estimate of time needed to respond. We could seek clarification from the requester if the request is unclear. If only portions of the request are unclear, we can ask for clarification on those portions, but we need to move forward with the parts of the request that are clear to us. And then we could deny the request in accordance of the law. It is very rare that we deny a request. Denying a request would mean that they requested something that you have to be a certain person to get those records. So for example, if somebody requested somebody else's medical records, that would be something we could deny, but those are very rare and few and far between. So the Public Records Act does not require us to do a few things. So agencies are not required to create records. We're not required to respond to requests for information, which would be questions, and we're not required to explain records. However, I would say that I do these things routinely. So although I don't have a duty to respond to requests for information, I certainly want to answer questions whenever I can do so, because I have a customer service duty to folks. We have a duty to our community. We do work we want to share with the public. Explaining records. I don't have to explain records, but of course I would explain records to folks because I want to provide that fullest assistance for folks. Requesters don't have to do a few things when they're making a request, and that they don't have to state the reason for the request. So they don't have to say why they want records. The only exceptions to that is if the request is asking for a list of individuals for a commercial purpose. So again, that's a very rare example. It's something like we got a request once for a list of all the folks who had bought pet licenses that year from a company that wanted to send them advertisements about pet memorials that company sold. So very, very rare. And requesters also don't have to provide their names, so they can be completely anonymous if they want to. Again, the only exception for that is if it's records that are only available to certain folks, like medical records again. So there, as I mentioned, there are exemptions under the Public Records Act, which would allow us to redact or withhold records. They're in the Public Records Act, and they're in other statutes, such as the healthcare laws that are not in the Public Records Act itself. And when we're redacting or withholding a record based on these exemptions, we have to identify which record we redacted or withheld, and we have to give the legal justification for doing that. So redaction codes, a withholding log, things like that. If only a portion of a record is exempt, then only that portion may be redacted. So I can't withhold a whole record just because one part of it may be exempt. The remainder of the document has to be released. An exemption should be narrowly applied. So the Public Records Act, by purpose, is written in favor of the requester and not the agency. So I'm just going to go over a couple exemptions, one of which we've talked about would be attorney-client privilege. So that exempts a client's request for legal advice, the legal advice the attorney provides, and the client's questions about that advice. The client must intend that the communication be confidential, and you can't exempt records just because an attorney is CC'd. So you have to have engagement and asking legal advice in those records. Another exemption is deliberative process. So when we are working on preliminary drafts, sharing opinions or recommendations on policies or proposed agreements, contracts, exemptions, we may assert that part of those or all of those records are covered by a deliberative process exemption. But once those decisions are made and policies are implemented or collective bargaining agreements have been agreed to, that exemption no longer applies and those records may be released. An agency is going to have to meet 4 requirements for each and every record in order to apply an exemption under deliberative process, and that is that the records must contain pre-decisional opinions or recommendations expressed as part of that deliberative process. Disclosure would be injurious to deliberative or consultative function of the process. Disclosure would inhibit flow of recommendations, observations, and opinions. And the materials covered by the exemption reflect policy recommendations and opinions and are not just raw data. So we would have to give out any raw data that is not a record about a policy-making decision. So the Public Records Act comes with some risks if the agency fails to comply. So there is a strict liability standard, which means we tried really hard is not a defense. If the requester prevails in a court case, they are entitled up to penalties of $100 per day per page, although that penalty is of the discretion of the trial court. So it could be per page, it could be per record series, it could be per file. It's all up to the judge, plus attorney's fees and costs. So violations can be very expensive for public agencies. And again, we've got a lot of resources, very similar to the OPMA resources. We have the chapter itself, and then the Attorney General's Office has another great video available on YouTube and on their website about the Public Records Act. And also the Municipal Research and Services Center has a section on the PRA on its website also. Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was a terrific overview. There are just a couple things I would highlight. One, with regards to the comment that the records that are being prepared here or that you received as part of your board work, knowing that they're subject to Public Records Act disclosures, just want to emphasize that it's really key that you assume that the documents that you create or receive, and that means emails or text messages, that those are documents that are going to be potentially viewable by the public or the press or anyone else who's interested in those comments. And I can't tell you how many times a year we get responsive documents to a Public Records Act that contain things that people feel awkward about having included in a record. Either they're critical of a person or they take positions that they really didn't fully think through at the time and maybe different than what they think is the case now. And awkwardness, as Shelby mentioned, is not a basis for withholding records. So just be aware of that issue, that the records you're creating or receiving are public records. Another comment, and I'm very happy to hear that you're going to be receiving a public email address, because I think that'll make things quite a bit easier. I'd really encourage you to use that email for a couple of reasons. One, as Shelby mentioned, the response times that we have on these are really fast. And so that will allow us to much more rapidly gather responsive documents, as opposed to having to sort through where responsive materials may exist. And the other thing is that avoids this issue that does come up now and again about whether there's a need to have your private computers searched in order to determine whether there are responsive records that relate to your work as a committee member. So if your emails are kept on the public email system, it's just not an issue, and that avoids that. Last thing I'd say is, and Shelby already said this, but just really key to involve staff right away. If you do get something that appears to be a public records request, please let staff know, and then they'll know how to respond to that within the time frame that the statute requires.
Thanks, Mike. I would also want to add that we as staff, we will not be touching your personal property or your personal equipment. So if we do need record search for, we will be working with you to gather those records. We will be providing instructions for you as to how to search. We'll answer technical questions, anything like that, but we will not be touching your personal property or devices. So I don't want folks to think that would happen. Any other questions that folks may have? Christy?
Yeah, I'm sorry to have so many questions, but the way I learn best is kind of by story. Could you, Shelby, give us maybe just a scenario in which case one of us as a board member might receive a PRA, and then how we would delineate it? You gave us a lot of the background about what we would do, but I would like to hear, if somebody wrote to me and this thing came in, what do I do specifically? And can you give me a scenario?
If say you got an email from a community member that says, "Hi Christy, I hope you're doing well. I understand you're a board member on this board. I'm really interested in the work that the board's doing. I find these 3 things are the most important things that I really want the board to know about. By the way, can you send me a copy of your notes from your meeting 2 weeks ago?"
Okay, okay.
That would be
So that's a legitimate request. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Something as simple as that, and then something as formal as I would really like to have the whole chapter 42.56 RCW of the King County Code.
Yep.
Okay, okay, good. Thank you so much. That makes it very simple for me.
Good. I think we're at time, but if anybody does have any questions to follow up, please just let your staff know, and we'd be happy to answer any questions later on. I really want to thank everyone for inviting us to this meeting. I was really, really impressed with the conversations that I heard before I joined about your agreements and the work that you're doing. So thank you for inviting us into your space.
Yes, thanks everyone. We're pulling for you.
Thanks so much, Shelby and Mike. Really appreciate you being here and talking through this with everybody. And see you later. What we are going to do now is Michelle is just going to give you an overview of some of the information she's going to be providing to you in the current meetings, and just so you have a sense of that and know what's coming next. And so I will turn it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Jeannie. So before I start, I just want to say I'm very grateful that y'all invited me into this space with you, not only tonight, but going forward over the next couple of weeks. I really appreciate the conversation that happened earlier, and just already like how direct I feel like and truthful that this group has been so far. So it's really encouraging. I also want to acknowledge it's like really late. I'm sure everyone's as tired and probably as hungry as I am, and this is the end of the meeting. And I'm super jealous that Marcus and Claudia got to do the fun part at the beginning of the meeting, and you're stuck with me at the end for the boring technical stuff. And if I was redoing the beginning, I would say if you really knew me, you would know that I never am the person who does the technical stuff. I'm usually the person that does the fun stuff. This is a real switch for me. All right, so before I start, I just want to give you a little bit of background of who I am so you can get to know me and why I'm here with you. So as I said, my name is Michelle. I use she, her pronouns. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen and I couldn't see y'all. I am a private consultant. I'm local. I live here in King County. I've lived and worked here for about a little over 10 years in the homelessness sector, both locally and nationally. When I first moved here, I actually worked at Solid Ground. I know there's a couple other Solid Ground folks on the call. I was overseeing the rapid rehousing and family shelter programs about 10.5 years ago. And then I worked for a while at the Continuum of Care lead agency, which was All Home at the time. Actually, I think it was the Committee to End Homelessness when I first got here. So when I was on that team, I worked with the youth homelessness team to coordinate and draft King County's first plan to end youth and young adult homelessness. And then I worked with the family team overseeing coordinated entry, diversion, and rapid rehousing programs. When I left there, I went to a national firm that does federal technical assistance, the Corporation for Supportive Housing. I worked there for a couple of years with several communities across the country on homelessness. And then about 3+ years ago, I opened up my own consulting firm. Currently, I do a lot of work across the country with communities. Mostly right now, my focus is on youth and young adult homelessness initiatives, both in the state of Washington and a couple of other organizations across the country. I do a lot of just general continuum of care support for communities, as well as just recently started working with an awesome team of consultants and technical assistance providers on a new national demonstration pilot through HUD that is focusing on racial equity and homelessness. So really excited about what we're learning through that. So my role over the next couple of meetings is to help orient you to your role as the advisory committee within the Regional Homelessness Authority structure, as well as your role as the COC board. And today, we're just going to take a couple of minutes just to give you a quick snapshot of where we will be going over the next couple meetings. Julie, do you want to go ahead and switch to the other slide? Great. So first off, as you know, this is the current sort of new structure for the Regional Homelessness Authority, with the governing committee and the implementation board that have already been appointed and have started meeting. And then, of course, the CEO position that is still in the process of being hired for the regional authority. And then the advisory committee, which is all of you. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so the two things that we will be focusing on in our upcoming discussions are your distinct roles as advisory committee members, which includes one, acting in an advisory role to the governing committee and the implementation board, which includes apprising the board on policy and technical issues on which you have made decisions, forwarding for approval any committee recommendations that you have identified as sensitive or political in nature, or for which you don't have decision-making authority. So these are all things that are spelled out in the Continuum of Care Governance Charter, which I am assuming you have all seen, and which we will spend quite a bit of time talking through in the upcoming meetings. And so just as a side note, if you don't have the charter or you don't know what I'm talking about, can you let us know, either chat or follow up with Jeannie, and we'll make sure that you have that before the next session. And then the other part of your role that we will be talking a lot about is performing the function of the mandatory federal Continuum of Care board. So in a very basic snapshot, a Continuum of Care, or COC, is the group organized to carry out the responsibilities prescribed in HUD, the Office of Housing and Urban Development's COC program interim rule for a defined geographic area. A COC serves as a planning body to coordinate housing services and funding, and promotes community-wide commitment to the goal of ending homelessness. So that's the formal definition of a COC. Basically, the functions include the operation of the Continuum of Care, designating an HMIS lead entity, a collaborative applicant, and planning for the COC. So evaluating outcomes and applying for Continuum of Care funding. Again, these are all super technical, and there are a lot of very specific pieces and requirements in each of these things that we will dive deeper into in our next meeting.
And Michelle, does everybody know what HMIS is?
No, thank you. I'm so glad. I had told my colleagues to make sure you call out when I use acronyms. Homeless Management Information, Information System. So for those of you who are providers, you know that's where you have to enter all of your data. But thank you, Carrie, for asking that. Can you go to the next slide, please? So just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of how we are proposing that we talk about all of these things, and then happy for feedback or suggestions. But the next meeting, we will spend time talking about the overarching purpose, role, and responsibilities of the Continuum of Care, which includes specifically around governance and the role of the board, which is you all, and then what it means to operate a COC, what the responsibilities are, what goes into the planning, designating an HMIS lead, the collaborative applicant who submits the funding to HUD, and all of those technical details. I also believe that the co-chairs from the former COC board, I can't remember if it was coordinating board or what it was called, but I believe they are going to also join us at the beginning of the next meeting. So they can help sort of talk a little bit about the transition and sort of give you a warm handoff and introduction to move on your own. And then the third meeting, we will spend that time talking more specifically about your role as the advisory committee in relation to the other bodies. So the governing committee, the implementation board, and the regional authority. And then I want to have a discussion with you all around the mission, values, and theory of change that is in the current COC charter document that I mentioned a little bit ago. And then we'll just talk again about sort of other components around the structure, questions you all have in terms of like how you're gonna function and operate together. There are very specific work groups that I believe are already in place, may not be meeting right now, but are in the charter. So we need to talk about those and then what other additional work groups may be needed. So with all that said, I just want to acknowledge again that this is and will be a lot of information that may be new to some folks, maybe not to others, but it's a lot of nuances and technicalities in there. So that's why we are breaking it into several different discussions. So we're not doing it all at once, and why we're definitely not diving into it tonight. But after this meeting, you will get a one-page document that lays out the things I talked about in the last few minutes with a little bit more detail. And then for each of the other meetings, you will get a lot of additional materials with resources and all the different regulations and requirements that the COC board is upholding. So I hope that all makes sense. It was super helpful for me to listen to the conversations earlier in this meeting and to get to know all of you, a sense of your background and sort of why you are interested in joining this board and sort of the perspective that you're bringing to this, because I think that's going to be super important. I also want to just say that in the work I've done across the country with other continuums of care, I feel like this board is made up very differently than I see in most other communities. I'm really excited about that. And to see what I heard a lot of you say is like, you want to do things differently. Like, don't just keep doing things the way they've been happening. How do you really center and bring in the voices and experiences of folks who are closest to this issue? So I just am grateful to be here and excited to dive into the rest with you. And I think that's all for me right now.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And I just wanted to see if anybody had questions they wanted to ask before we do the last little piece of our agenda for tonight. Any questions for Michelle based on what you heard? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So just in this last few minutes, and hopefully we're going to get you out of here maybe a couple minutes early, I just wanted to confirm, so moving forward, as we've talked about, we have 2 more meetings scheduled on Monday, March 22nd and Thursday, April 8th. And we're trying to do 2 things at the same time here, which probably obvious, well, hopefully is obvious to all of you, but I'm going to say it in case it's not. One is really to help you get up to speed on the technical responsibilities of this role. And there's a lot of technical responsibilities associated with the Continuum of Care board responsibilities, which is part of the reason we're working with Michelle, because she's worked with them before and is much more familiar with this than I know I am. And similarly, we want you to understand your role as it relates to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. And one thing I will say is, you know, at some point, I want to make sure we have our co-chairs of the implementation board come and talk to you. It probably won't be in one of these 3 onboarding sessions, but maybe for a meeting that we hope to have you scheduled for your regular meeting series starting in May, and to have them come so you all can have an exchange where they tell you what they're thinking would be helpful and how you work with them, and you can also offer up to them, you know, ways you might be able to help them and how you want to work with them. The second piece of this is more like when Marcus and I were talking about this meeting a few weeks ago, he said something to the effect of, yeah, Jeannie, I can help you weave the humanity into the meetings. And I loved that. Marcus and I talk about how to make workplaces and meetings more human all the time. And that's really, and I'm going to actually turn it over. I don't know, Claudia, if you want to say anything else, but this piece of like really good.
Jeannie's been having some technical issues and instability with her internet. Is she frozen for other folks?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can just pick it up.
Great, thank you. Jeannie, you froze for a minute. Oh wait, are you back?
I'm having issues.
Okay. Did you want Claudia to pick it up? Okay.
Thank you all for saying engaged. I saw a lot of head noddings when we were like, it's been a long day and y'all are probably tired. So I appreciate, y'all's efforts in staying engaged and completely understand that some people were maxed out. Earlier in the agreements, what I loved about that conversation is that it became apparent very quickly what's important to this group. And one of the things that was called out is that we acknowledge everyone's leadership, that everyone has leadership ability and potential, and y'all are leaders in the community. And it was very clear to me in the way that y'all showed up in the conversation today that these kinds of conversations aren't new to you. I know that we're in good hands here. I heard that y'all wanted us to build spaces that are anti-oppressive, that are inclusive, that challenge the status quo, that we need to take our time building relationships, and to meet people where they are. And I'm definitely, gonna keep that in mind as Marcus and I work on how we're going to bring activities and future content that is gonna be like humanizing, even though Zoom can feel very dehumanizing. And at the same time, I also want to hear from y'all, because y'all are leaders, right? And experts in this work as well. And so I just want to take a few minutes to hear from y'all. What are some ideas, suggestions, requests that you have about how we can build relationships with one another the next couple of times that we meet?
I think Kelly just spoke for all of us.
I just saw that in the chat. Kelly mentioned that bio breaks and thinking breaks are necessary to do this. It was a long meeting, and so just appreciate you all holding the space, one, to respect one another, but to also bring your truth and your humanity to the space. It was reflective in how you all spoke, not for one another, but on behalf of one another in spaces. We're very inclusive, and that's welcoming to see in a process like this. So I'm just going to call that into the space.
Yeah, so
thank you,
like the bio and the thinking breaks go back to our agreements, right? Let's meet people where we are and let's respect people's pace, right? And styles. So that means that, hey, we're people. So as we build out our agendas and whatnot, make sure that we're including some form of physical movement and time out and slowing down and coming back to things. What else?
I just want to say I agree with Kelly. That's it.
Noted.
I have a question about, it's my understanding that we're going to go through some other training to be able to be well advised and know these things that we're supposed to be an advisory board on. Is that going to be in further meetings too? And will you and Claudia and Michelle and Jeannie be here to facilitate for us, or are we going to be like fledglings and eventually we'll get kicked out of the nest and fly on our own? Because I like having you guys here.
Yeah, so I mean, Michelle is gonna, training, I don't know if I'd use the word training, but Michelle is definitely gonna provide you the information and orientation to the really specific stuff around what you'll need to be doing going forward. And I will also just say, I'm guessing you're not gonna know everything coming out of this process 2 meetings from now, and that learning can continue and be ongoing and, relevant to the space you all wanna create. We just have to be honest about when we have questions or we don't understand something. This committee will always have staff supporting you. So for the next 2 meetings, it will be me and Michelle and Claudia and Marcus and Carrie. And moving forward, I'm not sure exactly, but likely me for the first couple. And then once the authority has staff, in place, they will have staff who will support you all, but you will always have staff support that can help with, I mean, I think in the future, you'll actually be talking about, do you want to have chairs? And they might facilitate the meeting or take the lead on that, but you always have staff support as well.
Can I add just one quick thing? Also, I think the next meeting, if Colleen and Sarah, who were the co-chairs previously, show up, I think will be really great for you all to ask or have the opportunity to ask a couple of questions from them in terms of like what are the things like you should really be, or we should be focusing on to help support you, because oftentimes continuum of care boards years into being on the board are still like, I'm not sure what my role is or what action we're supposed to be taking. And I think Colleen and Sarah will be able to provide a lot of insight around like what they wish they would have known at the beginning, which will be helpful for all of us.
I think that's true, Michelle. I had a question to Jeannie about that, the call for the advisory board members was a year commitment. And it seems like it's taken this long for us to get involved. And I'm here for longer than a year. I'm here for however long the board wants to meet, and I'm a viable member and welcome, and you know, my input's good. How long do you see before we're able to be up and functioning? Is it a year from today, or a year from when we're able to meet, or when do you see this year commitment starting?
I think it's starting tonight, maybe even before, because you all, I mean, you know, went through a process even to be selected as members of this board. And by the first meeting in May, we'll want to engage with you about start talking, for example, about the point count for 2022, because those things actually require quite a bit of planning. So we are going to be jumping in. You know, once we've gotten you through a little bit of this orientation and getting to know things, but we're going to start asking for your opinions and start talking through things that need to happen as early as May.
And since that, you know, we'll just be getting seasoned by the time it's time to elect new board members, or are the people on the board that are dedicated and invested, are we eligible to continue on as advisory board members? Is that something that I have to tell you I'm not familiar with what the charter says? It seems like this is a big investment in time and commitment for a lot of us, and I bet a lot of us want to stay committed and involved in this. I'm just speaking for myself.
And I think that will keep evolving. And like one of the things, for example, I think we'll have you all put together some, okay, so I just will say I'm not an expert on the interlocal agreement that established the Regional Homelessness Authority. I think there may be some limited language there. And I think that's a conversation that can be had going forward. And I'm not sure if you all need like a bylaws or some sort of governing structure, and that's all some of the stuff that we'll talk, but there's space to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, it just took them quite a while to actually vote on the charter. There was some oofdas for that. So when we go forward, I see us, you know, here we are, it's August, we're ready to go. Oh, there's the new board starting up in November or whatever. So. All right.
Yeah, so I would assume you all be here a year from now at least. It's like I wouldn't assume it was, you know, back in like November when you were going through the process and they were selecting the board member or the committee members. I'm assuming the year that starts here. And like I said, I think there's still some details to be worked out. We're trying to like shepherd this process and help keep it moving as like for Carrie and I, for example, our county, and Marcus and Claudia actually are all county employees, but really we want to, you know, as soon as it's feasible, have the staff of the authority able to take over this role and be working with you all more fully, because that's really when we'll see also a lot of momentum with the authority moving forward.
And it's interesting that we're an independent entity, according to Mike. That was very interesting to find out. Well, don't trade me to Chicago yet, Coach.
Thank y'all. I know we're running up on time here. I'm wondering if anybody has any suggestions or recommendations for relationship building over the next couple of meetings.
You want to say that again, Claudia? Because I think some people didn't hear it quite as well. So if you could say it a little louder.
Yes. Yeah, my headpiece died. So I'm wondering if you all have any recommendations, suggestions, or ideas as to how we can help y'all relationship build over the next couple of meetings.
And I would add, you would be welcome to email us if things come to you. To the point, since we didn't give you any thinking breaks or bio breaks, I can understand why you might be ready to just go. But please, I would say, email me and others. Jesse, I think I see your hand up.
I was just going to suggest maybe smaller group breakouts where 3 or 4 of us can just chat each other up for a minute with a prompt or something, just so I'm trying to track
Jesse.
everybody. And several folks are not on camera, so I'm struggling a little, but that would be nice.
I agree with you. And, you know, my style, my normal style is the breakout group. And we were told that that's not allowed in this. Yeah,
Public
because
format.
it's in the public format.
Okay.
So I agree with you that that would be best case scenario. That's, you know, a super tool and allows for better connection. So we had to get creative today.
So there are some limitations about what we can do since it's an open public meeting, and you have to allow for folks to view that and break it into smaller groups. They don't have a window into their world, so you have to keep the larger group context. So just so everybody's clear that that's part of the process and some of the challenges that you have about creating authentic relationships in here. So any creative ideas you all have about bringing that into the space, we could try to incorporate that. Just know we have some limitations that we have to work within.
Yeah, in the spirit of, you know, meeting people where they are and changing the space up, whenever we ask a question, like was said earlier, feel free, if you don't think about an answer right now, there's not like a timeline to, you got 5 minutes to come up with the answer. You can totally email people afterwards and be like, hey, I thought of something, you know, days later. So, you know, let's continue to foster this invitation of putting things out into the space, and also hoping that people, you know, express their ideas and needs as they need to. And it's the job of the facilitators and the people that are holding the space to ensure that we are, you know, meeting you where you are. So thank you so much for your ideas and your contributions.
Thank you. You guys did all a good job facilitating and answering questions and keeping us engaged. Thank you.
And I will just say thank you so much to everybody for sticking with this. Definitely, I'll get you some breaks into the agenda next time. I will also, in follow-up to this meeting, send you out some notes, just really high-level notes from the meeting, the PowerPoints that Shelby shared, and then soon after that, you'll get an agenda for the next meeting, which is on Monday, March 22nd from 12 noon to 2:30. And it's 6:58 according to my computer clock. And since I said maybe we'll get you out a few minutes early, I think we should wave and say bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye. Looking forward to working with everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.